just to kind of give you guys a heads up, is that I have been playing Ironsworn now with some European folks for uh, since December, since early December. And so when we first started playing, I had no idea how to play the game at all. And so we kind of had to figure it out together to a certain extent. And I did and so I put together session 0 outline for that game. Now, what we'll be doing is probably a little different. And in fact, a lot of it will be different. But we put together a lot of stuff to set up the game already in advance. So I figured we could use a lot of what I have here to sort of set up the game. And I know Amanda has read the book, and I know Gretchen has not at all. What about you, Ben? Have you looked at this at all?
I have looked through it. I would not say I have read it. So I'm probably Gretchen and I are going to be we're going to be guides in this.
That's actually it's perfectly fine. Yeah. I think go ahead, Amanda.
Yeah, just to be frank, I started to read it. Keyword, started. I got through the first chapter and a half.
It's a PBTA, right? Kind of
ish.
I mean, you might say that if you're going to try to compare it to any system, that would be the closest. It has a basic mechanism. You roll, and every action that you try to take, you roll 2d10, and then you roll a d6, and the d6 is you take one of your attributes and add it to the d6, and then you have additional adds, which are like bonuses. And if your outcome on that d6 plus other things is higher than both of the numbers, you get a strong success, or strong hit is what they call it. If it's higher than one of the two d10 numbers, you get a weak hit. And then if it's equal to or lesser than both of those numbers, then you fail.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's kind of like PBTA, because you know, but except for that, in that case, you roll a 2d6, and then it's usually like a target number that's like, you know, so includes complications or whatever.
So 2d10 is basically setting your difficulty.
Yes, exactly. Right. And there's other things. We're not going to really talk much about mechanics, though, I don't think, tonight, because one of the things that I know now, after having played with other folks, and we played with other folks, I played with other folks for, you know, 4 or 5 sessions, and then we had a new person play, and that person had no idea how to play the game. And we realized that if you have somebody that knows how to play the game, that's the best way to play the game, because you don't need to know, like, I can point you into the directions of where we go as we go. And it's actually pretty intuitive once you get rolling, but it's really it's so hard to explain. It's so hard to sort of figure it out because it's so counterintuitive. I mean, it plays like a GM'd game or a DM game, but you don't have a GM. So the way it reads is like so not what we're used to when we're reading role-playing game books. So for right now, we don't even need to worry about any rules, because we're just going to start like by making the world and kind of going through this process. And that is all just like pure creativity. And I think that's all 4 of us have that strength, you know, and that's, I think, why I asked you all if you wanted to do this game, because it really thrives in a circumstance. Do I sound like a robot?
For a split second, yeah.
I sounded like a robot, didn't I?
Just for a second.
It really thrives when people are, you know, really creative and all of that. So we don't need to read over all of this stuff, but the Ironsworn core game that is laid out in the book is a dark fantasy setting. And I would kind of put it in like, it sort of feels like Viking. Like, I mean, sort of, you know, even like the way that magic is thought of and the way that creatures are. And it's a lot of sort of steeped in that Viking mythology. Now we're going to move away from virtually all of that, except for the key thing is that the way the game's mechanics are set up, it creates an environment that is dark. It's hard. Your characters are going to go through hell. There's just no way around it. You fail a lot, and failing is the way that the story can move forward in really interesting ways. And so no matter the fact that we're switching genres, we're still all going to be, there's no way really to get away from the dark aspect of it, which I think is a feature, not a bug. I am really into that. So the game can be played in 3 different ways. You can play it as a solo you can play it as a solo game. You can play it with a GM, or you can play it like the way that we're playing, which is co-op. And the way the co-op works is that there is, for the most part, you make moves, but to determine outcomes. But it actually always starts with the narrative. So everything that we do, we talk about what we're doing first. We talk about what we're doing first and foremost. And then we roll dice to go from there. And that in and of itself has, the moves have built into them a certain level of randomness. But then there's a feature called the Oracle. And the Oracle is what really adds in random things. It determines who, what, how, what something looks like, all of the little details it can choose for you randomly, so that way that you're not just like telling a story to yourself, essentially. And I would say, in addition, as we play, we may also the book itself comes with oracles, but you can use any random generators as oracles. And you see as we play that you may kind of find another inspiration to draw from. Gretchen got me this really incredible thing called the Reckless deck, and it's this box set of cards essentially that allows you to, like, you randomly draw stuff and it creates outcomes, and like that would be perfect for it as well. Or you've probably seen, like, you know, tables of like 100 or 20 or whatever random things. Those can also work really well. And you kind of have to go with it where there's prompts. And generally speaking, the prompts are somewhat minimal, but I found that every time I play, I'm totally surprised. It's a lot of tension, and it really does feel random, and it really does feel like there is a GM. And it's not like, if you play the game right, then you're making it really hard on yourselves, and that's kind of half the fun of it. Certainly you can die, be killed, end up in ruin, you know, have your character be disgraced. All of that is very much in play. Trust me when I say that. So, you know, it talks about the tone of Ironsworn. You know, your character is exceptional, but you aren't a superhero or a mythic figure. Imperfection is an important part of characters. So, you know, we'll kind of do that. You make decisions through the flawed perspective of this character. And then it says you also paint your world in shades of gray. So, you know, kind of think of it in those terms. The rest of this stuff, weather's hostile, terrors lurk in the dark nights of deep forest, we're going to decide what that even means for us, because we're not doing this specific setting. So that's the basics there. Let's get into some of these. I've got these gameplay expectations here. You know, we talked about, is everybody cool with bi-weekly? I think that feels good to me. I mean, it's frequently enough that we won't forget what's happening, but it's not too frequent that it'll be a drain on any of us to kind of stick with. Generally,
I will be at a wedding.
Yeah.
In 2 weeks. But on the flip side, I will be in a wedding in Savannah. So.
Yeah.
I figured we would do this session, then wait, and we'll just play again in 4 weeks. I mean, we'll just play the first real session, and that's fine. I mean, we're doing session 0, so like we'll set everything up, and we're not actually gonna like finalize our characters right now in this session 0. So that'll give us time to finalize our characters. kind of lock everything in, and then we can have kind of a group discussion as what we want our inciting incident to be, because that's something that we will determine. That's something that we decide at the beginning, and then everything else is based off of that. And let me tell you, if you think you know where the story is going to go from that inciting incident, you're wrong. I'm just going to tell you right now, our whole thing has gone so off the rails. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, I listened to an actual play session of this, and it did not end up where it started.
So I figured we'd play 2.5 hours each time. I think that's, Gretchen and I, that'll end our game at 10. This is a kind of more exhausting game, I think, when I found when playing, because you are putting a lot of creative energy. There isn't really a lot of downtime as a player where you're kind of sitting around. You're going to be engaged all the time. If your character isn't involved, then generally you'll take up the reins of an NPC, and that's actually really fun. Like, I really like that aspect of it, an NPC or describing scenes or whatever, and you'll see it'll become really intuitive as we get going. You'll just, an idea will pop up, and I anticipate the four of us will work really well together in that regard. Is everybody okay with 2.5 hour sort of bi-weekly time frame? All right, so campaign length. I mean, we should talk about this. We don't have to say we're going to play this many sessions exactly or whatever. But I don't know what people's what are people's thoughts on what we want to do with this game.
I mean, I don't know. I would say certainly play through, do a few sessions and kind of assess at that point. Like, kind of see how it's going.
Yeah. So I will tell you this: we did there are various tiers of difficulty, I guess you might say, on any given quest, and that essentially, as you go through progress points within a particular quest, you mark boxes, and in order to sort of solve a quest or complete a quest, you want to get enough boxes full that you feel confident that when you make the dice roll to complete the quest, that you don't fail, that you at least get a weak hit, because you don't want to, because you essentially lose all of your progress, almost all of your progress, or you forsake your vow. So you don't want to fail the quest. So we play weekly, about an hour and a half sessions. And we actually now have 3 vows. One is kind of a background vow, but we have 3 vows, 2 kind of major quests, are 2 sort of front of the line quests. One of them, we are, I would say, 2/3 of the way through the quest. Now, this is the second easiest difficulty level that we've put it at, and we're 6 sessions in. So now the dice have terrorized us as well, I will say. And you know how that can be. You just I mean, we were going across land, and we ended up getting through a storm, pushed into a cave, and then we couldn't escape, and we went an underground river, and then we fought a troll, and we collapsed and fell into a chasm, and then we found an underground city, and we had to explore this whole underground city and get this artifact and then escape. And it was this whole, we basically went through an Underdark adventure in the middle of our adventure. So it's not guaranteed that's going to happen, but I would suggest we at least try, I would say it takes 2 or 3 sessions just to feel comfortable with the system. But I would say probably for best results, to really give it a shot, I would say we probably are thinking 4 or 5 sessions to complete a quest. And at that point, other quests, I've noticed, and we've noticed this with the other game, they start to naturally branch off. The artifact we ended up getting it from these spirits of these dwarves who were trapped on this world and couldn't go to the afterlife because they had fractured off from their ancestral clan. And so in exchange for the artifact that they possessed that we needed to help us with our quest, they made us agree to go and help them reconnect to the original clan. And that ends up, that's another big vow we took, and we haven't gone and done that yet, but like there was another quest kind of that we saw there that we decided to take on. So that can happen, and that will happen. And so if we are playing and we like it and we play through a quest, and then there'll be undoubtedly be other quests that we can say, let's go do that. And if we don't, I think it's also easy enough to just say, okay, that was fun, and we can move on and feel a certain sense of completion. You know, it's not like a D&D game where you feel like you just kind of, it pitters out and you just stop in the middle of it. You know, there are definite endpoints along the way. So we're going to do the group size. It's recommended for 2 to 4. We play with 4 in the game that I play with the European guys, and it's perfect. It really works out well. And then we'll do record keeping on Discord. I've made channels kind of for everything that we would need. Many of them we will never touch, and I don't know how much we'll use Discord, but it's there, and it's a good place. The world gets bigger and bigger, and you start forgetting details. So it's nice to have like a place that has maybe like a picture and a few words about like each NPC or whatever. And then of course those little blurbs of information can be added to and changed. You can edit them and go back and edit them, and then it'll change that character or update that image or whatever. And so I think that's kind of a good method. But I mean, that's basically, I think, the gameplay expectations. But so let's talk about, I guess, lines and veils. We all know what lines and veils are. I mean, I don't want any rape. I mean, I'll put a line on rape.
Sexual violence of any kind, really.
All right, put that in here. Now, anybody else got anything else they want to put a line or veil on?
I will say, though, with sexual violence, I think implied, like it has happened in someone's past, totally fine with, but actively occurring in the game is a no-no for me. Because let's be honest, post-apocalyptic world.
Crap happens.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that word. My bad.
Happens.
Okay, I'm going to put a caveat then on that in a character's past is okay. Anything else? I mean, I'm kind of fine with that. I sort of trust you all as storytellers. I don't really think it's going to be, and I also think, like, I don't love the X card because, as Amanda has explained, it's a little too harsh that you're not really meant to discuss it. But I think maybe we can just make an overall agreement that if anybody's like feeling really uncomfortable about something, just speak up. Meaning we can talk it out like adults. I don't think it needs to be, we're not playing amongst random strangers. So, all right. So, okay. Well, all of that out of the way, let's get into the campaign setup then. And I'll move over to the campaign setup summary here. So it creates your character at the top, but you also notice at the end of that, it says, if you prefer, you can start by creating your world below. We're going to create our worlds first because of the fact that we're doing something totally different. I don't know what character, I have a few ideas about characters, but it doesn't really, I don't have anything filled in because I don't know what our world's going to be. So let's go we'll move over to the world workbook here, create the world. And so essentially what we're going to do is we're going to go through this series of questions, and none of the answers that they give us are going to pertain to our game at all because we're going to be doing a post-apocalyptic game instead. But I think it can give us some ideas at least. So the old world, and I think what we would call the old world in our game is like the pre-apocalypse world. And this is probably where we want to decide what our apocalypse is. And this is probably our biggest discussion. Amanda or Ben?
Go ahead, Ben.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, just once we've gotten this done, will this document be made available to us?
Yes, I am actually going to type it in here, and we'll put this document in the world truths in the Discord.
Then I will not feel the need to frantically copy things down. Carry on.
Yeah, so like one thing I want to mention here too is we want something descriptive but generally clear and concise. So we want to come up with things that are 2-3 sentences long that give us a good foundation, but not over explaining things, because it's more fun when you can let the story tell itself through gameplay than like, oh, let's describe everything. But go ahead, Ben. I'm sorry.
No, I guess this is more of the question we're trying to sort out, because for me, the big question is how long ago is the old world?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I just read, I was just mentioning, I read these, the Red Queen's War and Prince of Thorns, and those are post-apocalyptic books, although you don't really notice it at first, but it's set 1,000 years after a nuclear apocalypse. So there is basically a medieval kind of environment that has sprung up in that, and then they find little bits of technology that they think is magic. So we could go that far, or we could do something more like, more recent, something like the Fallout video game style, where it's somewhat new enough. But I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? What do you prefer?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you want to do?
I'm probably just in that mindset because I've been playing Horizon Forbidden West, which I think is like, it's supposed to be like 1,000 years or something after the apocalypse. But yeah, because I guess it's like the farther out we go, the more unique, or the more kind of like fantasy-esque it's probably gonna feel, or like medieval-esque it's gonna feel.
Yeah, it's interesting because that, like, I was kind of thinking about that too. It's like, if it's just like 50 years after, or like 100 years after, let's say, then there'll also be a lot more like evidence of technology, right, like more buildings, more that kind of stuff, which could be interesting. But yeah, I think if we go without,
still be a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Or at least like your great grandfather told stories. Yeah, right. Like,
right.
What do you think, Gretchen? You've got a lot. You're a big post-apocalyptic person, so.
Well, it's tough. I mean, when you look at something like Fallout, it's been a while, but it's still the world outside is still very much influenced by, the old technology, and the buildings are still mostly there and things like that. So I don't know, I like the idea of having not so much separation that today's conveniences and technology or products, things like that, are totally wiped out. I think being able to imply things like, while we're walking and there's, an old Coca-Cola billboard, which is, really faded and half falling down, it's there. And maybe we don't necessarily know what that is, but we know what it is as we go by. Like, it's not something that's a part of our history or direct history, but rather, just a part of this world. Like, we just don't know what it was for. So like, for example, the bull billboards that are still up in Spain, unless you were aware that they were left over from old liquor ads, they're just these random billboards that sit up on a hill in the shape of a bull. And I kind of really like that idea.
So maybe mid-range?
I think mid-range should be good.
Yeah.
I think about a generation sounds like.
Yeah, I think that could be good. I don't want to get so far away that it becomes medieval, where it's basically a fantasy setting. I want it to be a little bit more gritty, that there's more struggle. People haven't necessarily fully settled into what life is now.
Yeah. I mean, there's that dynamic with like near future post-apocalyptic where you kind of have this split between the desire to like move on and build something new and this desire to reestablish what was lost.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. So what kind of are we thinking in terms of years?
Maybe when our grandparents were kids? Maybe a little bit earlier or
so
further back?
Probably 70 years.
I think that sounds kind of perfect to me.
Sounds pretty good, yeah.
Because so there might far enough back that you're like that, like your parents might not have lived through it,
right?
But your grandparents probably did. But most people's grandparents have probably died because
it's a harsh world. Yeah. So survivors from the
resource.
And they would have been very young.
And it's kind of interesting to see that now because there's been a lot of talk about how certain grandparents who lived through the Depression, their habits are now happening with people, our age because of the pandemic. So I think that's still kind of, something we could have a little bit more connection to in sourcing histories and events.
All right. So I love that. But now we need to decide what is our apocalypse.
Well, before we decide the apocalypse, we should probably figure what was the society level when the apocalypse occurred.
Oh, there you go.
True. Yeah.
Because are we assuming it's like now, or maybe 50 years ago, or maybe 100 years from now, or?
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't even thought of it in those terms.
Yeah, neither had I. I just kind of defaulted to now, but
I kind of defaulted to now too.
We can do now. Now works perfectly fine.
I know, but that is interesting to think about it. I think from a storytelling standpoint, it could be kind of interesting because I think a lot of the trappings that we have, like in terms of pop culture elements, like what Gretchen's saying, like a Coca-Cola billboard could still exist in that environment of 50 years ago, let's say. So technically the year would be like 2042.
I think,
but the apocalypse happened in.
Yeah, I think I want to just throw it out there, like maybe like 10 to 15 years from now, because I think that would give us a lot to work with in what happens with this presidency and the next presidency. If we were to base it on like us, did something happen that caused this with certain crazy conservative figures?
Well, it is interesting. I mean, like,
and all hell broke loose and the society melted down. I don't know.
I mean, like, we're like pandemic, war. I mean, it does feel like we could draw a line in a particular way that would lead us to something.
I mean, we don't know that we're not living in the pre-apocalyptic moment. Like, we don't know that that's not what's happening right now.
I will say this is not the dystopian like hellscape I was promised by science fiction.
I know.
Yeah, but it's also not the Star Trek utopia that I was promised.
No, I don't have a flying car.
Also
it's much more Brave New World than 1984, you know?
Yeah.
I'll be right back. Give me 1 sec.
All right, well, what kind of apocalypse then? Okay, is everybody, Ben, Amanda, you two okay with like 20, we'll say 2035.
2035
is when the apocalypse happens.
Okay. I guess next question is it like a all at one moment thing, or is it a slow slide into chaos?
I guess that really depends on
what kind of apocalypse we're talking.
Yeah.
It's easy to imagine another pandemic.
Yeah.
Do we want to go there? Gretchen and I just watched, and I know it was a book first, but we just watched Outpost 11.
Station 11.
Station 11, which is a post-apocalyptic book, and then it was made into a limited television series on HBO max. And so it's 10 episodes. And I don't want to give anything away because it was really phenomenal. So I highly recommend it. But they had it was a flu. It killed almost everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And they had so it was like, it wasn't caused by society. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a society goes to hell and then there's an apocalypse because of that. Just everybody starts catching the flu and dies. You never really know if it was man-made or none of that ever comes up because it just kills everybody so quickly that, and this is no spoiler on that because that's like literally the show starts and that's it. That's what's happening. So we can also have a non-societal beginning to the apocalypse. I mean, like, we could have like a meteor strike, you know what I mean? Like that wipes out. We could have massive volcanic eruption or I mean, who knows what, I mean, we could have any number of.
I mean, it would be kind of awful if Yellowstone decided to get froggy.
Yeah. Thought that one a few times.
Yeah, we could have something, and we can, of course, we're making this up, so we can like say Yellowstone erupted and it, like, part of it was like an EMP pulse. It knocked out like all electrical devices or something as part of it. And then also
thinking along like an EMP would be good. Something that just wiped out technology in a heartbeat, like everything we rely on.
I like it. Yeah.
But we can shape that a little bit more as we go on.
My only thing about that is it doesn't create a wasteland effect. I do like a little bit of like.
What kind of wasteland do you want?
Well,
teenage.
I don't know if I necessarily like Ben, you mentioned, is it a quick or a slow? Like, we could have a slow environmental degradation kind of apocalypse where the deserts expand. Or have you ever what is that book? And then it was The Road.
Oh God.
Which is like oh my God, that book is, but it's so beautifully written. I mean, it's like a poem. It's just like a big,
so beautiful.
I love that book. It's like, God, it's probably my top 10. That's such a good book. But that one is, I mean, that's like environmental. Like, everything just, like, there was drought and fires erupted everywhere and like things were all burned down. And
I mean, if you have something as cataclysmic as like a Yellowstone eruption, like, you're gonna have all those knockdown effects because like it's just gonna blot out.
the sun goes bye-bye.
Yeah, you're gonna have the equivalent of nuclear winter and whatever else.
Do we want to say that in 2035 the Yellowstone volcanoes erupted and that's our apocalypse?
Yeah, and I mean, you might be, I mean, I probably fell asleep on this day in science class, but I mean, you could say it caused like a chain reaction effect. Like, there were earthquakes around the world and there were volcanic eruptions and basically the world like cracked.
I like it.
And that way you don't have like
Europe sending aid.
Yeah, like, you don't have parts of the world that were unscathed.
Right. Or what if there's like a semi-mythical story that, well, there is one part of the world that's unscathed. Good luck getting to it and doesn't even exist.
Yeah, there would always be that story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's like Waterworld, dry land, or you know, there's that place that every kid is told about, or like it's a legend, or you find a traveler that knew someone, and that's a great we have to have that in the background. You have to.
I mean, heck, they have it in The Road. Like, they're going west.
Yep. Oh, I love that book so much. Have you ever read that book, Amanda?
No, but I've written it on my legs, so I'll track it down after the night.
That's a good one.
It's a hard read.
It's one of those books though that, and I love it about it, is that when I was reading it, it changed my headspace. Like,
Nice.
you know what I mean? Like, because the way it's written, it really creates the environment of what it is. So like, I was in it when I was reading it, and I think that that's a really special book.
Yeah, that's a huge writing influence on me.
I've never read any of his other stuff either. It's Cormac McCarthy, right? I've never read not another one of his books, but now that we're talking about it, I'm like, maybe I should.
I read Blood Meridian a lifetime ago. But yeah, it's just very very direct and visceral and like sparsely beautiful. Like, I always think of that book every time I'm writing it. It's like, have I used too many words? Yes, I have used too many words.
In my writing for the paper, I do not know how to use few words. It's like, I've got a 700 word. This is supposed to be 700 to 1,000 words. All right, here's 1,500 words, editor. Good luck. Oh, bye, Amanda.
Uh-oh.
She'll be back. Okay. Okay, so I have, in 2035, Yellowstone volcanoes erupted. This set off a chain reaction that broke the world. Technology was disrupted by a massive EMP.
I don't know that you would need the EMP, because you would just have a disruption of the power grid.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just say technology was fully disrupted. How about that?
Yeah, because I don't think it would take much, honestly. Like, when you really think about it. Like, if you just disrupt electrical infrastructure for long enough. Oh no, she had an apocalypse.
Okay. You guys can probably see that, right? You can see what I'm typing?
Yeah.
Presume.
I'm wondering why you're typing it in Photoshop, but that's okay.
Well, yeah.
Rob,
I'm not
Rob finds some technology that he can handle, and then he sticks with it. Because you'll also notice he's doing it in CS6, and now we're at 2022. But
well, CS6 does not require me to sign up.
That's true.
And pay a monthly service fee.
Yep.
So I own this forever and pay nothing more. So make fun of it all you will.
Hey, I'm the one who bought that, so I know.
That's why I use Affinity.
I'm kind of grateful that you are really milking the last usage out of that program. Good job, Rob. Good job.
All right, so one element that I think could stretch us creatively, and I think maybe we could try to figure out an interesting way to incorporate this, is that the game is called Ironsworn, and the reason being is because you're swearing iron vows in a sort of ritualistic way over iron. So I'd like to keep at least that core element intact if we can, in terms of iron is important, sacred, critical to survival, some way that we decide, and as a group, we can decide how and why iron is important. But I'd like to kind of keep that core element just to stay true, at least to the game. And I also think another reason why I want to do it is because I have no idea how to do that. And I like the fact that I have no idea how to do that. Like, that to me makes it a challenge, and a challenge is cool. So here you can see it's got the imposing hills and mountains of the Ironlands are rich in iron ore. Most prized of all is the star forged black iron. The weather is bleak, rain and wind sweep in from the ocean. The winters are long and bitter. One of the first settlers complained, only those made of iron dare live in this foul place, and thus our land was named. That could kind of work actually for us. And then this inscrutable metal pillars are found throughout the land. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, only because it's our world. But I don't know what you all think.
I think it's scavenged. It's like scavenged, like pieces of like intact pieces of metal from from like ruins and that kind of stuff would be super valuable.
Yeah.
And do you think so? I don't know anything about forging stuff. Is it easier?
Our neighbor Derek does.
I know, he's like an ironsmith, isn't he? Or like a blacksmith?
He's a blacksmith, yeah.
I wonder, is the reason why, I mean, so isn't steel easier to work with?
Well, steel is an alloy, so it's iron and like, what is it? Is it iron and bronze, or iron and like tungsten or something? It's iron and something mixed together, because iron normally is brittle.
Yeah, like, but why would, in our post-apocalyptic world, why would people hoard iron? Like, what would it make? Why would that be chosen over steel? Or,
well, I think it would still be steel, but they would just refer to it as iron. I don't know. That might be that might be cheating. Does it have to be like a universal around the world, or in just an area?
Ooh, good question.
I mean, it's our game. I feel like it could be whatever we choose, right? It's
we took refuge in an Iron Mountain data center. Don't do that.
Oh, okay. Wait a second, though. There is something there, though. There could be. I mean, there could be a legend of something. It could be based
Instead
on
of it
some
being
sort
the
of
actual.
Yeah, and maybe
Okay.
people do swear on iron, but maybe it's because of some sort of legend or some sort of almost pseudo-mystical or pseudoscience or
Isn't it iron that supposedly fairies and stuff are allergic to, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
so like a
So we could build this in some sort of mysticism.
well, how about we just say there's a legend around a mystical oh, go ahead, Ben.
I mean, we could just we could like brand people with like hot iron,
Ironsworn.
and that's like a
Whoa.
just become like a cultural thing,
Like the
like
clan or like
So
family.
say goodbye to
lineage thing.
tattoos. We're just back to branding.
yeah, like where you come of age, you have to get your brand, and like every accomplishment or like whatever you get or you swear an oath, and like you like take a brand or something.
Kind of like
Wow.
werewolf renowned scars.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I like it.
Okay, so individuals are branded. How would we describe this?
As a mark of accomplishment, both good or bad.
Yeah, because you could get a certain brand if you're, or a certain kind of brand if you're like a bad person.
But also it's
Yeah.
interesting too, like if you're taking an iron vow and there's a branding, then it's like you are physically showing your commitment.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Yeah.
if you don't do the thing which you have branded yourself with, then there's like a shame in that too. That'd be kind of an
Mhm.
interesting
Yeah.
Yeah.
as marks of accomplishment. And
Or like connections,
Mm-hmm.
like
So
to
like
your
family lines.
to your family line, or like it's just a way to identify people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for like the brand, it could, like for like accomplishments, it could be like, all right, I've sworn an oath to do something, and like it's like the brand is incomplete.
Yeah, you get half the brand when you start and the other half when you complete the thing.
Yeah.
I like it.
that'd be interesting too, because and the brand maybe in some ways is like a storytelling device as well. Like,
Mhm.
so you don't
Yeah.
know what the end of the brand is going to look like because it will tell the story. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, and
maybe
it's like
it'll.
it could be like
Yeah.
all like connected.
I love this. This is so cool. This is
off
really
in, like,
Yeah.
different directions or something. So like you might have one that goes a little like that's incomplete, but then it like branches off over here, and then there's something else done. And I like that. I might steal that from something.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm like, why didn't I put that in the post-apocalyptic book I wrote?
Wait, you wrote a post-apocalyptic book?
I did.
What was
I wrote a post-apocalyptic book with fairies, actually.
Oh shit.
What's which one?
Iron is relevant.
Take my money.
What's it called?
It's called Changelings of the Dark Earth.
Okay, I actually saw that. I have that on my Goodreads list. So
Okay, yeah, shut up and take my money.
It's short as far as my books go. So
all right, cool. So that's Iron. Let's go down to legacies here. I think we've already talked about this here, but first humans to walk these lands, no. I don't know if this really pertains. I'm just going to put that we are the grandchildren of the last of those who. Okay.
Yeah.
We are the grandchildren of the survivors of the apocalypse. Perfect. Oh, don't you come over here, mosquito.
What?
All right, so communities. So this is going to be interesting here. This is, I think, an important decision. So essentially there's small scattered settlements, larger settlement, larger settlements, some of which have become, kind of clans. It says, size range from a steading with a few families to a village of several hundred. We don't have to call them circles, who cares about that? Some might include a cluster of settlements. We trade and sometimes feud with other circles. And then the last one is, in some ways, civilization is reformed. It might not be the civilization which we're used to, but there is a civilization of reformed.
Right.
What do you all think?
Yes. I mean, I think one of the things I like in kind of apocalyptic fiction is that you have that gradation, right? So like you've got the areas where there's people that are living in like, a little village, and then you go further afield and you find there's some kind of big city or something that has like nefarious ambitions or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
What one of the fun things about the Fallout games.
Yeah, definitely. Do we want to one of the things, of course, though, about the Fallout games is that you start in like a vault and you emerge and you kind of assume at first, at least, or you, like, to your knowledge, there's very little civilization. And then you ultimately end up finding larger civilization. Do we want to play it that what is our knowledge of civilization? Do we want to say that to us, things are scattered, few and far between, that there are bigger settlements that maybe we're part of? Where are we in the context of this range? Because it does really change how the game is played. For example, in the Ironsworn game that we're playing, we do have big cities. We kind of did the same thing. We wanted all of these. So there's we made one big city. There's one big coastal city, and it's like a big city. It's a medieval style city, but it's a big city like on the coast. And then the further you go in, the more wild it gets. And we wanted to start on that borderlands, basically between where civilization ends and the wilderness really begins. And then there are small villages that are really not even, are they established yet or not? Will they survive even? And that's where we decided to start. But we also knew that we could go to if we chose, we could head in the direction of some civilization. But so our characters know that. And in fact, in the game, depending on, some people decided to play one person decided to play a character who was actually a descendant of like the leadership of the city, even though, and they were disgraced, or there was a power struggle and they were exiled. Whereas others were like, one of the people was actually living from a tribe in the wilderness that was like a nomadic tribe and had very little connection to the civilization. So what do we want to know, I guess, is the question.
Are any of y'all familiar with Mouse Guard?
Only in name.
The name sounds familiar.
The conceit of Mouse Guard is that everybody's playing little tiny mice, not anthropomorphic mice, but field mice. But the thing is that they have a bunch of tiny little satellite communities surrounding a large main town, and that the PCs are members of the Mouse Guard, which means that they are charged with escorting other mice from place to place, keeping the roads safe, that sort of thing. What if we were something like that we had, there's the big city, there's all the little outlying hamlets that may or may not survive, and that our thing is traveling in between, going, whether it's carrying messages, doing escorts, keeping things safe, whatever else. I mean, maybe I'm skipping too far ahead, but maybe it's like, we know that there's a big city, we know that there are little places, but our place is the place between all those places. Does that make sense?
How connected are these places though? Like, and how reliable is the information? In the sense that, like, are there maps?
In Mouse Guard,
are there roads that are frequently traveled? Is it safe? Like, you know, those kind of things.
Not safe.
I don't want it to be safe.
I don't want safe, but one of the nice things in Mouse Guard is that, yes, there are paths, but the paths are constantly changing and needing to be upkept, because constantly weather happens and animals happen, that the path that was perfectly viable last season is completely impassable this season.
Well, travel is going to be a pain.
Yeah.
So you're probably not going to have much in the way of communication or correspondence between places that are more than like a day's walk.
Yeah.
So, I mean, information would move really slowly.
Well, unless there was a system of bird messengers, pigeons.
Could have that could conceivably be put in place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're saying communities are varied from larger villages and towns to very small settings. And
yeah, but it sounds like it wouldn't be unknown. Like, like you would know kind of where somebody somewhere has a map.
And like basic landmarks that wouldn't be likely to change, those would be known. Like,
right.
Yeah, like
although those may have undergone some upheaval along the way. So I mean, it would be cool if everyone had like old like actual maps, but like you didn't know how accurate it was.
Oh, I love that.
Oh yeah, that's great.
It was like, well, it says there used to be a road that went here, but there was an earthquake, and now there's a 50-foot wide chasm here. So
right. Yeah, it's a perfectly good road except for that bit.
Insult the sacred Thomas Guide.
Yeah.
No, I love that too, because like there could be like, you know, something called like Fallen Tower, and it's like a giant skyscraper that has like fallen over, and there's desolation everywhere around it, but like it's still, and people know that thing exists, and maybe there's a community that's built up around it, and so like that's a landmark, and everybody knows like that place exists. But
I like it.
How you get there exactly, and do your maps go in the appropriate way? How is the land shifted? Like you don't really know necessarily.
Like who knows how to do cartography?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like you have like satellite maps, or it's literally people walking around. Mm-hmm. I'm going to leave it then. Communities are varied from larger villages and towns as very
we
small
might have
settings.
an occasional satellite fall out of the sky.
Right?
There you go. I like it.
All right, so
that happened in Walking Dead. That was awesome.
Some good metal right there.
So leaders here, there's varied leadership depending on the community. There's communities have their own, there's a similar prevailing power structure would be another option that they give. And then there's a third option, which is like there are, I mean, it says petty domain. So I kind of think of that as like warlords or you know, like it says clan chiefs. Most are intent upon becoming the one true king. We don't have to call it anything like, you know, we can use different terms and stuff. But I mean, what do we want to do as far as that goes?
I don't think it would be a default, but I would love it if there were at least some of these leaderships were like cult compounds.
Like, yeah, I like varied. I like varied, as much variety as possible, depending on.
Yeah, I mean, you could. It's easy to see a cult taking over in specific areas, or like the fucking wingnut down the road who has a stockpile of guns is suddenly in charge of town because he will blow you up. You know, I think, yeah, I like varied.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think varied would probably make sense, especially for small communities.
I mean, for that matter, the very smallest communities might be completely anarcho-collective and not have leadership.
Right. Yeah, in fact, they're more likely to be that way. Yeah, because typically you'd expect to see more centralization the larger they get, because you typically it's hard to build something that big without that centralization.
Right.
I don't think I spelled authoritarian right.
I think that's right.
Is that right? It doesn't look right to me. You know how that is when like a word doesn't look right.
Yes.
I just look for the little red line underneath it, and if it's not there, I'm fine.
Oh, the little red line lies.
Okay, I spelled right.
Don't tell me that.
It does. I write a lot and sometimes it does not get my words right, like for the newspaper, and I'm like,
don't tell me that. No.
It's like, give me the suggestion. Can I just get close enough?
I know, right? All right, so defense. So the first option it gives here, which we could go with if we wanted to, is that there aren't organized fighting forces at all, except for when communities come together. The next is that there's literally kind of a guild called the Wardens that travel around the land sort of dispensing justice. You might think of, I kind of think of them as like the US Marshals or something like that, like in frontier America. And then the last one, they're almost like small armies or forces that are put together by the various organizations.
I'd like either the first or the second. Not quite so keen on the third, but I could be talked into it.
I kind of like the second, the first and the second as well. And because I kind of like the idea that there are something like a warden, like there is like somebody out there, who wants to say we're in charge, and so they're like sending people out to like enforce a particular type of justice,
right?
And whether or not an individual community even agrees with that justice is interesting to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the first one with the idea that like resources are just too precious to kind of sustain. But I also do like that idea of like there's kind of a group of people that like maybe they've like taken it upon themselves or they're like the descendants. I mean the I guess the lazy answer to this is that for number two, it's those people they're the descendants of whatever like militarized fighting force existed in that region.
Now I like that.
That's kind of a lazy answer, but like I mean, it would depend on like where you are, right? Like you'd have to have, it would have to be an organization that had like a really clear like mission or philosophy of this is what we do and we're going to keep doing that even though things have gone to shit.
Like what happens? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean they would have to have like a certain like institutional like integrity.
Kind of like the Cajun Navy. That what happens if the Cajun Navy was the last group standing? I mean, y'all know the Cajun Navy, right?
No, I don't know what that is.
No? Oh, wow. It started at Hurricane Katrina, I think. That was the earliest I heard of it anyway. But it was basically this huge, it evolved into a huge network of good old boys who had boats, rowboats, power boats, pontoon boats, whatever, any kind of boats. And when Katrina came through and the army came in and basically was, telling rescuers, no, go back. You can't go in here. We've got this under control, whatever. And all of these good old boys came from out of nowhere, said, screw you all, Mr. Army. We're going in and rescuing these people. And they did. They came in and they basically just gave all the army people the finger in passing as they putted their way through the water.
Love it.
And started pulling people off of rooftops. And since then, every time there's been a coastal disaster on the Gulf Coast or up the southern eastern seaboard, the Cajun Navy's mobilized, and within a couple of days, they've just convoys of boats to come and rescue people.
Oh my God, I
give
love
the finger to the Navy or to the Army in the process. Yeah,
Cajun Navy.
Yeah, they're
amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah, cool people. They rescue pets too, where the Army doesn't.
I mean, that's like someone's kid.
Exactly.
Cajun Navy. I gotta look this up.
Oh yeah, they're cool, awesome people.
So would this accurately describe what we're thinking of? A group of militaristic descendants of the original survivors who follow a specific code also roam the land dispensing justice? Is that does that give us enough flexibility? Or Ben?
Yeah, I mean, you could see it's like some weird like amalgamation of like Marine Corps and like some like other civil service kind of like, and I just say Marine Corps just because like that's like that organization has a pretty like strong like, I mean, almost like obsessive, like commitment to like the like whatever the their kind of like philosophy and history and all of that.
Yeah.
But yes, like
part of me loves the idea of the SCA. I mean, the SCA just lives for this kind of post-apocalyptic.
Oh my God, could you imagine? Descendants of hardcore LARPers have.
They wouldn't last because they would spend all their time arguing over who was most historically accurate.
Yeah, true.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
But yeah,
I like the idea. I like Ben's idea with the Marines and whatnot.
It could just be some amalgamation of like a bunch of different groups that kind of like came together and were like, look, we're gonna like make sure we're taking care of people, and we're not in like an authoritarian kind of way.
Yeah, nobody was strong enough on their own for their group to do it, so they had to put all the little groups together.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'm going to add also roam the land, dispensing justice, and caring for those who need it. So I'll put that in there too. So it's kind of like, that gives us a lot of flexibility because we can have some of the members of this who are very strict and brutal, and then we can have others who are really, caring.
Then you could have it where like, someone's like, is like their grandparent was like they were an EMT, and like somebody else's was were a I don't know, they were in like the National Guard, like somebody else was I don't know, somebody else was like in the Postal Service or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so like skill sets are almost being handed down. apprentice
Yeah.
style.
Yeah. I love that. I love that idea.
I like that idea quite a bit. I think that's really nice.
So mysticism here. Now this is essentially magic. We can put any level of magic in this. I will tell you the system is kind of a low level magic system. I think with what we're creating here, we're kind of essentially making it a no magic world, but we could also recontextualize magic in some way or another. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Like we could make it a mystic thing that people, maybe like nanobots have been released, or and there are those who have learned to command it, but it's become almost ritualistic or magical.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
Is it like just the maintenance of technology has taken on a mystical?
I like that too.
Like the classic thing of like it's like in the Warhammer 40K series where you have like the tech priests that are like praying to the spirits within the machines.
So then we would recontextualize, I think, if you were falling in. So there are assets. Our characters are created with two things. They're created with their attributes, which are their stats, and then their assets. Assets sort of define your character class, for lack of a better term. So everybody starts with 3 assets, and you kind of combine those 3 assets to create to mechanically back up the character you're trying to create. The way magic is you take assets that are rituals, and rituals describe effects. And so essentially, like, I'll give you an example. There's one ritual that you can create minor illusions with. So like you might think, okay, well, that's like a magical spell. Well, we could have it whereas person who's doing a ritual, maybe he has access or an understanding of technology, and maybe they're like literally using some sort of device,
like a projector
in a way. But it would remember, we also have an extra 15 years or since on top of our time. So it's certainly easy to conceive of a device that projects 3-dimensional images into space. I mean, we already are looking at like augmented reality and things like that. So
the metaverse.
Yeah, I mean, I think nanotech is kind of the easy answer here, I think.
Sure.
I mean, nanotech is it easily explains everything. We can just and then we can also just say, well, the ritual as it's described within is just because in the 70 years that have happened since, there's been a ritualistic element or a spiritual element, or however our individual characters decide to contextualize that. If you decide to go in that direction, I am not going to go in that direction. So
there's another angle we could do of saying, so if we're presuming nanotech, and there's a degree of like, if it's nanotech driven by some kind of like crude, I say crude, but like super sophisticated, like AI or machine learning. So it's not like truly sentient, but it's like changing and evolving. And it somehow has a self-sustained power source. So it doesn't have to worry about getting like shut off or something. It could have like advanced to a point where like it can do lots of other stuff, but like learning how to like wrangle it and tap into it.
I love that.
It's the tapping in.
Yeah, and I love that because it also gives us flexibility, because we don't need to define it any more than that. But it could be something that we ultimately explore, which could be really interesting. And it does really fit. We can easily come up with rituals. I was actually kind of thinking when you're saying that, Ben, have you guys I mean, I know Gretchen's seen the 100, the television show, the 100.
Oh, I remember it, but I think I've only seen like an episode or two of it.
Yeah. So what's a post-apocalyptic show? It's basically, in fact, I think they're 80 or 100 years after the apocalypse happens, and they basically send these people down to Earth to repopulate it. Right, all these like kids down to Earth to repopulate it. None of that really matters. There's a group that lives on the planet, like the Earth, on Earth, and they're called Black Bloods. They rename it like in a ritualistic way, but really it's a symbiotic human and tech version of humans, so they can take in this piece of technology. It's like literally an object,
a microchip,
and it's passed on through cool. So like when it's to be passed on, there are actually these kind of like, might call them like priests that initiate the passing on of the device from one generation to the next, and those people have like powers. Essentially, they have some powers.
Yeah, so maybe like going on that, maybe that kind of like evolving tech or whatever is like it has to like bond with a
host.
Person.
Yeah.
To be able to like reach its kind of full power, and it kind of lays dormant otherwise.
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the things too, actually, in the show. But I think this would also make a lot of sense, which is, it makes perfect sense. Is that, as you learn how to use it, you gain more powers. I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
also, it could bond with an animal.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I like it.
Yeah.
Which might be dangerous.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so awesome. Then let's do that. Let's say let's there is an advanced technology that can bond with certain humans and animals to give them almost magical abilities. And then I'm going to put in here rituals.
And yeah, maybe that was like it was like a nanotechnology that was developed to like somehow interface with people, and then like the disaster happened, and like some of it like things happened, it kind of developed in weird ways, and like all sorts of like, I don't know, it could go in a lot of directions.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. I think this has got.
Yeah,
we have a lot.
We probably shouldn't describe it too much more.
Yeah, and we will. Of course, we're not going to play for a month, so we'll forget all this anyway.
Right.
Religion. What do we want to do? I love the idea of like crazy cults and all this stuff. I mean, I feel like that would almost definitely happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So 70 years, like cut off from. I think there's going to be cults and superstition and basically,
but also handed on versions of the standard mainstream stuff.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, can you even imagine what QAnon would look like? And never mind. Nope. I retract that thought.
God. Nope. My thought went to Scientologists.
Actually,
Lord.
I think we wouldn't have to worry about the QAnon people because they couldn't talk online anymore.
You're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
Thank you. Yes, I bring on the. I'm gonna be quiet now.
I thought you were like Lord Grimdark over there, man. What are you giving us hope?
Well, I didn't say what you were going to get instead of that.
No, it wouldn't be QAnon. It'd be way worse.
It's like the QAnon people are invading the Parent-Teacher Association and school board meetings now, so they can deliver their crazy in person. That's a thing.
I mean, I do live like half an hour from like the Scientology headquarters. So.
Well, all right.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we used to live really close to a bunch of their compounds out in Los Angeles.
Yeah, they basically own downtown Clearwater. So
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
God.
they do. Yeah, they do.
and they have an old building that they restored in there's an old part of Tampa called Ybor City that's like where the old cigar factories were and stuff, and it's kind of like a night spot. And yeah, right on the street, right between like the community college and down where all the bars and stuff are, there's a Scientology building. And there's always somebody in like a, their little suit outside.
They're always good looking too, and they pass you off to someone who's not once you get in the building. I love reading about Scientology. It's crazy.
All right, so Firstborn, what they're talking about in the context of this game, they mean like elves and giants and all that stuff. We don't. I think we should have monsters and crazy mutated things, and I think that would be interesting. But when we're talking about Firstborn, what I think we are kind of talking about are the survivors, and who they were and how we view them.
Well, would it be that, or would it be like the like people that might be living in a vault or a bunker somewhere?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Like
or for that matter, what if the nanites got really into small quantities of the population and effectively mutated them into what amounts to something that we might not recognize? But I like the vault thing.
Yeah.
I like the vault thing a lot.
I mean, I'm all about like all kinds of mutated weird shit, to be honest with you. Like, I mean,
mutants are cool.
I want like unexpected terrors to be a part of the game, but I like that though, that idea, like maybe there were like you mentioned, Ben, like there was, I mean, some sort of vaults, and they essentially continued on the society
right
as it was in a way,
and they may or may not exist.
Yeah,
it's like kind of a legend or a belief that they're there.
Dryland. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, so like maybe there's like there's always some story about like an expedition from one of the vaults, like, oh, when my parents were young, this guy came through and he had metal skin and his red eyes and
like him.
My uncle went on a journey for that and he never returned. People say that he found the vaults and went to live amongst the originals or something, something along those lines. I love
Our
that.
uncle got drunk and fell off a cliff.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. So beasts, now we can do this. So beasts of old are nothing, well, beasts of old, but new beasts are nothing but legend. I don't think we're going to say that. Monstrous beasts stalk the wild areas of the Ironlands, and beasts of all sorts roam the Ironlands. They dwell primarily in the reaches, but range into settled lands to hunt. They often prey.
What about escapees from zoos or wildlife preserves with no one to tend them, I would imagine.
And for that matter, when we went into the first COVID lockdown and we saw all the deer come out and the dolphins come back to Venice, and I mean, wildlife comes back with a vengeance. But yeah, the zoos and the wildlife preserves, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, so wildlife has retaken the earth.
Run wild. Packs of dogs happen here in Savannah. I mean,
and some of them are probably nanite corrupted or mutated or what have you. Yeah.
How about we'll say mutations run rampant?
Yeah.
Okay. And then this is the last truth. And these are horrors. This is mostly about the dead, I guess you could say, and coming back to life. How do we feel about this?
I don't know. I mean, I think the horrors would just be people. Like, how have people devolved? Right? Unless we want to say, like, worst case scenarios, nanites could bring people back to life, but not with any sort of sentience. It would just be
nanite zombies.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, I mean, the other option would be if like there was something when like all these natural disasters happened. If there was like something in like from, you know, trapped deep down in the like the Earth's crust or something that escaped, like whether it was some type of like mutagen or some type of like
glaciers melted and something was released.
Yeah, so like and I don't know how it would I mean, it wouldn't make any sense practically, but like, you know, something like the you remember that black goo that's in the Prometheus?
Oh yeah.
Like if there's some kind of like something, like maybe it's like some kind of weird spore or something, or that,
well,
what about instead of it coming from under the ice or something, what if when like all of this stuff happened, there are like labs and stuff around the world that are creating like these are doing these experiments, and some of that stuff got out and mutated and changed. And
another option could be pollutants, like as the factories started breaking down and things started seeping into the waterways.
Yeah, that would be another one.
It could even be both a lab leak and the toxic waste issue.
Yeah. Let's do
it
all. Come on, double.
How do you spell pathogen?
Pathogen, I believe.
I think that's
yeah, that looks good.
Yeah, that works.
So we're saying pollutants and untended pathogens. Anything else?
Experiments.
Yeah.
Or biological experiments. I have to remember, we're always going on like, it's like the Gamma World view of like the apocalypse. Where
I love it, dude. We're going old school.
Just like the sci-fi view. The sci-fi view thing where it's like, actually radiation just kills you. Like radiation doesn't cause you to turn into a super mutant. But it would be cool if it did.
Kills you dead. Tumors, hair loss, teeth falling out.
Oh God, did anyone watch Chernobyl?
Yeah.
I binged the entire series on a flight back from Europe. I do not recommend watching it.
That's
just imagine you sitting in the dark watching this while everyone else is sleeping, going, I do want to watch that though.
It's worth watching.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, highly recommend. I have a digital copy of it if you're inclined.
Yeah, what station was that on?
HBO.
HBO.
We probably got access to it then.
Yeah, it should be on HBO Max.
All right,
that
so
sounds
I got
like
pollutants.
A Gretchen watches it solo.
Yeah, that's so pollutants, untended pathogens, and biological experiments were released into the environment, creating unknown horrors. We can do a lot with that. I mean, I think that any other notes we want to make about our world?
I like pineapple.
I like pineapple too.
Oh yeah, what part of where are we?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Like,
I was kind of hoping to. I mean, we know this area.
Oh, we do, but does Ben?
The southeastern U.S.
I
think there's a lot of flexibility there. Plus, you know, if you throw Florida in the mix, all sorts of weird shit comes out of your state, Ben. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh my
I'm
God.
not from here. I'm not from here.
Giant,
but you're there.
giant drug crocodiles and.
Oh yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah, everything goes in Florida.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that doesn't quite fit. Well, I guess you'd have like massive climate shift, so it could be cold. Although it gets cold in Georgia.
I like I kind of like maybe thinking of the other coast. I mean, Gretchen mentioned this the other day. We were talking about post-apocalyptic. We were just kind of talking about this game and like what it could be, and we were thought of, you know, when California stops getting water pumped to it from Colorado, and like what is that? How does that make that? I would imagine that basically like a huge swath of desert would be out there, but then there's also like really interesting geological features where, you know, we're talking about earthquakes and things like that. I mean, like there could be literally like an island has broken off.
What if California finally fell in the ocean?
Yeah, like kind of broke off, or, you know, I mean, like there's something interesting to me there too. And having spent time on the West Coast, I do find the shift in environment from the Northwest to the Southwest to be really interesting. You know, so I don't know. I mean, I'm up really for anything. I mean, because it's gonna be all different, so we can do whatever we want. I mean,
I suspect we're gonna end up traveling anyway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it would be. I mean, we would probably be thinking like Northern California ish.
Yeah, I think that it would have to be, because anything else would probably be a waste. Yeah,
they'd be next to nearly uninhabitable.
Yeah.
And
so
of course, Northern California would be highly at risk for fires, so it would be an interesting.
But at least we'd be warm.
It would be really warm.
So warm.
I actually interviewed an insurance adjuster today about wildfire mitigation and prediction technology.
Oh wow.
Nice.
Yeah, it's actually really cool. But anyway, I've learned like a weird amount about California wildfires.
Why did you
know more about that?
Yeah, why did you interview somebody for that? Like, what is?
So the marketing agency I work with, we have a client that is basically developing a software that's going to allow insurance adjusters to more accurately assess risk for homes, so that they can break down. Like they'll look at like a satellite imagery, the MLS data, and then like a physical inspection of the place. And then their model will break it down into like 2 centimeter squares. And they'll be able to look and say, like, in the event of a fire, this tree, and this tree will burn your house down.
Wow.
If you get rid of that tree, and you limb that tree up to like 20 feet, your house will be fine.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's impressive and terrifying.
Yeah, it's super cool. It remains to be seen if like they'll be able to implement it. But anyway, so I've read a lot about wildfires lately.
Fascinating.
But yeah, well, I mean, we'd have like the other kind of like threat of like volcanic disaster from like Mount St. Helens, like Mount Rainier is still active.
Yeah. Is Mount Hood? No, I don't think Mount Hood is.
Maybe,
I don't know.
Might be.
Yeah, I've slept since then.
Yeah, big enough environmental impact. Who knows what could become active again?
True.
Yeah. I mean, we could do. We could also be in like Appalachia too.
True.
Oh, now see, that's interesting to me. I love that, because I put in the beast section too, like devolved humans, like humans that have like inbred over and over again and devolved. And I think these really isolated communities could have that kind of thing where they become almost like a subhuman species or different species, or
I like the Appalachian idea.
And then there's also the wilderness environment, like, and what's out there is really scary. Let's do
hanging out in the
Appalachia.
Yeah. What's
Also,
hanging out in
it's
the
like-
leftover coal mines?
Also, it's hard. It's not a super accessible area, so like it's more plausible that even if some kind of semblance of order has been established somewhere, it probably isn't going to happen there.
Yeah.
Your like
It
power
has its own
infrastructure-
order.
Yeah.
Your power
Plus-
infrastructure is going to be more knocked out.
Plus, I just love the Old Gods of Appalachia podcast.
Oh yeah, that is cool.
Oh yeah.
Gods of
Yeah.
Appalachia. All right. I'll
Yeah,
have to
Old
check
Gods
that
of
out.
Appalachia. Y'all. Oh yeah.
It's cool. I've listened to a few episodes of it. It is cool.
Oh yeah.
There's some new game like RPGs based on
Mhm.
Appalachian lore and stuff like that. I've been
I
kind of
think there's an
intrigued.
Old Gods of Appalachia RPG.
The RPG coming. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I can't wait.
All right. Okay, so I think that pretty much does our campaign setup. So that does our world setup. So let's go back to the campaign summary here.
Yeah.
And let's move over. Well, first of all, do people want to take guys want to take a quick break? Or are you good going?
How long do you think we have left?
Not long. We're going to basically talk about characters that we would be interested in playing and maybe
Okay.
set stats. And then that'll give everybody, because what we want to do is we want to choose characters that are varied enough that
Mhm.
people are going to choose assets, because we're not going to do assets tonight. Everybody's going to be on their own to choose their assets because it's just too much for us to all go over as a group.
Yeah.
So we want to establish at least the concepts we're going for, so that way when people choose assets, we don't have a lot of overlapping assets,
Right.
because a little bit of overlap is okay, but you don't want one person who can talk to spirits and then another person who can talk to spirits.
Right.
That's not fun. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Like, here,
but you want
Honestly,
to.
though, I'm really excited because I really wanted to play someone who was kind of country, and you all just popped right into that. So
Yeah. And I'm
Thank
just
you.
really excited because
He's leaning
I'm
into my
gonna play-
childhood.
yeah, I'm
yeah,
just
same.
eager to play something that's outside of what Gretchen says, that I always play the same types of characters.
Caster,
Smarty pants.
Smarty Pants. Yeah, that's true. Amanda does play Smarty Pants.
Not this time.
I'm gonna play a dum dum.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
I am going to play a golden retriever.
All right. So, so let's we can
I just
do.
pictured a blonde character running around fetching things.
No, it's yellow lab. That's what it is. Lab. Yeah. Golden's-
So we're not gonna. So we can talk about character cons, or do we want to take a break, or do we want to just push on until? I'm fine
fine to
if we
go on.
want to. Okay.
Let's go.
So I've got the character sheet up here. We have the Google Sheets, which are, you make so many changes on your character sheet on a regular basis that I actually find I am much more of a have a piece of paper character sheet kind of person in general. But actually in this game, I found the Google Sheet to be really useful. But we can use this as a basis. Everybody's momentum starts at 2. I'll just tell you this right now. Everybody's momentum starts at 2. Health starts at 5. Spirit starts at 5. And we have a shared supply stat, but it'll all be starting at 5. Health is physical health. Spirit is essentially mental health. And supply encapsulates a lot of things. It's like food, money, resources. So you don't have to, you're not going to have equipment written on your character sheet. It's not like D&D. Yeah, there's none of that. Supply is sort of a thing that abstractly describes whether or not you have things you need. It really has no mechanical advantage or disadvantage until you start running out, until you run out of supply, and then it really starts screwing with you. I'm not going to explain too much about momentum, but your momentum will go up and down throughout the game on a very regular basis. And momentum can take the place of a dice roll, essentially. So you would sacrifice, instead of making the D6 plus whatever, you instead would take your momentum and that would be the roll. if you have a negative momentum, it cancels out your D6 dice roll that corresponds to that negative momentum. So Amanda's going to write character or equipment. Okay. You might have like a piece or two of equipment that you really want to have on your character sheet.
No, I'm just writing the word equipment.
Okay. You'll see at the bottom, the abilities are when really bad stuff happens to you. And oh my God. 3.5 life. Yeah, Amanda's a big Pathfinder player, so the equipment. Although I played an OSE game recently and my character equipment list was like 10-foot pole, and like I had like all of this crazy stuff because you need all this like weird stuff to navigate. Yeah. So the abilities are, there are times when you might like die or something really bad will happen to you, like, or
only once, hopefully.
Yeah. So you instead can take like abilities where it is kind of like a permanent or semi-permanent scarring. They're really not that easy to get rid of.
Oh, I love that.
And so, but they're also kind of interesting. Some of them, like there's a Bane, for example, called Corrupted, and there is an asset that you could only get if you're corrupted. So there are disadvantages, but they also offer story opportunities that are interesting. So there's a lot of that in this game. Mm-hmm. Just kind of explain a couple of other things. Bonds are bonds with other characters in the group and NPCs and even regions or towns or places that you build throughout the game. And at the very end of the game, your bonds determine your sort of legacy. It's for you write an epilogue for your character when you end your character's game, and your bonds sort of tell the story of your epilogue.
So I have to actually brand myself at the end of the game session.
Yeah. Did we not mention that?
Yeah, I hear someone calling. I gotta.
I've been heating the iron in the fire this whole time. And then vows, of course, are, I would think of them as kind of your quest. You make iron vows that say, I'm going to do this thing, and then you follow along on that quest to do those things. And vows are broken up into 5 different categories: troublesome, dangerous, formidable, extreme, and epic. Essentially, those play out similarly, except the progress is much, much, much slower as you go up the scale. So a troublesome vow, every time you reach a waypoint or you make progress, you actually mark 3 boxes. Dangerous is 2, formidable is 1, extreme is a half of a box, and epic is a quarter box.
Wow.
And you're really not even going to try to complete the quest until you get 7 or 8 of these boxes filled. So it can take some time if you have like a huge vow. And a lot of times, like we'll all start with a background vow, and we'll get into that later, but it's a vow that relates to your character that you probably will never complete, but it sort of might play a role in the story of your character. For example, in the other Ironsworn game I'm playing an apprentice wizard, and my master disappeared, leaving his staff behind. So my background vow is to discover what happened to my master. And I set it at extreme. And so maybe I'll make progress towards it, maybe not. It's not a quest that the rest of the group really cares about. We don't make a lot of progress, but I can kind of storytell it in there if I'm interested. Experience is earned by completing vows. So you do a vow. When you follow through with it, you gain experience. You gain an experience point you gain experience points equal to the level of it. So troublesome, you gain 1, dangerous is 2, formidable 3, extreme 4, and epic is 5. And then you use those experience points to do various things. But for the most part, you use them to gain new assets, which are, each of the assets that you get has 3 different components, one that you automatically start with, and then 2 others that you can gain. So you might think of it as like, let's say there's a vow that basically, it's called like the Wayfinder. And it's kind of a vow that relates to tracking, finding things and stuff like that. You'll start with one thing that'll kind of help you find things. And then you can use experience to buy yet another ability that helps you track, learn things, gather information, that kind of thing. So it sort of expands upon the abilities associated with that asset. And generally, the one that you start with is kind of I wouldn't say the weakest, because they're all good, but like the simplest. Let's say the simplest one. The one that's usable the most, but maybe not the most powerful, but it's like sort of it's most frequently used. So like when your character begins, you're able, the obvious one. It's the obvious one. For now, that's really all you need to know about any of that stuff. The stats, and I'm going to go to the book here for these, actually, because I want to kind of explain these appropriately. And let's see here. Your character 4. So let me get page 33, actually. So edge is quickness, agility, and prowess in range combat. Heart is courage, willpower, empathy, sociability, and loyalty. Iron is physical strength, endurance, aggressiveness, and prowess in close combat. Shadow is sneakiness, deceptiveness, and cunning. Wits is expertise, knowledge, and observation. Everybody starts with 3, 2, 2, 1, 1. So you can put those along there, those stats, to determine sort of like what fits whatever your character is. But before we set stats, we should just talk about what we want to play. And really, I would say this game is very flexible. Anything that we can probably come up with here, it's very likely you'll be able to make it. I found, at least in my opinion. And the whole message that this game sends throughout the book is narration first, rules second. Always talks about that. So you don't make rolls, don't figure out what rule it is until after you've decided what you're doing, how you're going to act, and all of that. So we should talk about what kind of characters we want to play here. I know Amanda has 15 ideas, she said. I have a few, and I'll just kind of throw some, and I'm really open-minded, but we talked about maps. I thought one would be kind of interesting, would be a sort of a traveler, somebody that's looking to map, looking to fill in the blanks in what the world looks like. A natural traveler, somebody that's going to be interested in moving about, exploring, and somebody that can be good as a guide. So that would be kind of one character idea that I have in mind. Another one I was thinking of that could be kind of fun is to play a kid who's like a scavenger, like a survivor, maybe whose family is gone.
Your
or
kid
disappeared.
Characters are great.
I love playing kid characters, actually. Maybe a little.
You need to get the Alien RPG.
I really want to.
Character class.
Nice.
So, a friend of ours, Gretchen and I, this guy Tamsa, who we play games with him a lot, and he was telling me he played in an Alien game where somebody insisted on putting Gretchen, you heard about this? Did you hear about this?
Yeah, I heard all
They
about it.
insisted putting on a line on violence. No violence at all in Alien, the RPG. So
How do you even do that?
I know.
Yeah,
So like the first adventure, they're like on the ship, And the whole first session was the captain loses the photograph of his family. And the session was the group doing an investigation on the ship to find the photograph, the missing photograph of the family. Wow. And they did. The end. Alien!
Wow.
Guess what?
Special.
Don't play Alien if you don't want violence.
No.
Yeah. So anyway,
so
yeah, so I'm just throwing out some, but guys, throw out some ideas if you got any thoughts.
Hoping to play. I don't actually ever play like a bruiser kind of character. So, I mean, that's kind of all I have so far is country bruiser character. Maybe not on the brightest end of the stick, but yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't my fault.
Here she goes.
My sister, she picked up a bad guy. Now, she couldn't figure out that he was a bad guy, but I could tell he needed himself a killing. And so I took care of that for her. And that's not the problem. The problem is that now she doesn't have a guy. So now, so that she'll forgive me, I gotta go find her a new guy. One that I don't have to kill afterward.
So it's like Hello Dolly, only she's a murdering kidnapper?
No, I killed my sister's fiance. I'm gonna have to go find her a new fiance, preferably convincing him to come back and be the fiance.
Oh, okay.
Yes. This is more, I'm going out to find a new arranged marriage.
So what skill set would you say that this character possesses?
This would be a heart 3. This guy is hyper sociable, incredibly loyal, really eager to please, but also really eager to do the things that he think will please without necessarily thinking through as to whether it will actually please.
Interesting.
He's decent in a fight, but he'd much prefer to not. But dumber than a bag of hammers and about as sneaky and manipulative as a freight train.
All right. I like it.
Oh, Amanda. Oh, Amanda.
Tell me that that's not different than anything I've played in front of Gretchen before.
It's impressive. It's I like it.
Yeah, my guy is going to be just fine. Yeah.
You got any ideas, Ben?
I'm thinking. Nothing quite that provocative, unfortunately. That's a good one. I don't know. For some reason, I keep like honing in on like somebody that I keep honing in on like a mushroom farmer.
Nice.
Not like hallucinogen mushrooms, but like this is just a staple of the diet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
I think that's great. I mean, if you're in the mountains and you have all the caverns that are there and the caves, and then it's a food source that doesn't rely on sunlight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people make more fertilizer for it all the time. Yeah.
I mean, maybe we do cultivate mushrooms that like can do different things. So it's like, oh, if you're having trouble sleeping, take this one. If you're having, if you have indigestion, take this one.
I like it.
So they kind of travel around with like a bag.
This is different than Gort's meat sack.
That's a thing, Ben. I have a character named Gord, and he has a meat sack. that he eats meat out of.
Well, it'd be weird if he had a meat sack that he didn't eat meat out of.
True enough.
How does the meat get in the sack?
Well, so right now the meat sack is filled with dragon meat, actually, I think.
I think so.
Dragon-ish meat.
Impressive.
I might have eaten a sentient being or two.
Maybe.
Okay, so I'm trying to think because there's a herbalist, and I'm trying to find it here, but I was thinking of what
It's
you
on
were
the
talking.
path things, yeah.
It's a path.
It's a path.
Let's see if I can find it. You know, it's in my. This is my.
There it is. Oh no, ritualist. Sorry. Oh, there it is. No, bottom right now.
There it is.
Down the middle.
Squee.
Yeah, so this is like heal using herbal remedies. And you have at least one supply. So this kind of helps you heal. But if you look, I know I guess it's mostly a healing kind of power. There's actually a guy who's playing an herbalist in the other Ironsworn game, and he does a really nice job of playing it up. It's really fun. Like the way he does it is he makes the world feel a little more alive because of the way he describes finding things and exploring and digging around and doing all that stuff. You know, like, because the game relies on us to tell the story of what is around us, and having a character like that is really, see, there's a lot of things in here that, like, the story element is actually way more interesting than, like, we're looking at, you look at mechanics, but the story part of it is what's really cool and really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think there might even be like a poisoner thing as well. Let's see that.
Oh, there's one called Revenant. I feel like I have to use that one.
Yeah, so this is when you face death and you return to the world of the living.
Ah. Yeah.
So yeah, this is one of those things. So again, this is like one of those things I was mentioning where you end up becoming based on what you guys are talking about, I might be interested in going with the kid then. Sort of the scavenger.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I have an animal. Could be interesting to have like a little like I mean, I don't see it listed here, but I could probably, respec something here to do a
Oh, young wyvern, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's totally what you have.
Yeah.
I could maybe change giant spider to like a mouse or like a rat or something. Could be kind of cool. Like a
wait, back up. Why wouldn't it be a giant spider?
I could be a giant spider. But I'm kind of thinking now, like now that we're talking about it, I mean, the kid, this kind of a scavenger type. Maybe I'm like maybe I could go with the little sneakier kind of character, like a shadowy kind of character. I might even, maybe I even can speak. Maybe I'll take a little something that lets me speak with or see spirits or dead or something like that.
Cool.
Because I could see a kid maybe having a little more of that imagination and be able to tap into the nano kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like it.
Well, we don't have to make any decisions here, but I was going to kind of, I thought we could kind of make it as in terms of where we would try to reach today. I thought we could set stats, come up with the basic concepts. That being said, we're being put on the spot here, and if Ben doesn't feel like being a mushroom farmer, or Amanda doesn't feel like being the psychopath, you're ready.
Medicine. Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah. My crap is on point. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm feeling good about the kid too, because I actually was kind of thinking a little bit about that already. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So I thought we could set stats and then, you know, we can move it around here too. What is this, Gretchen?
Edge is like your dexterity.
Yeah.
Heart's your con.
Yeah.
I got to get these forms. So I'm trying to get into the Discord server, and I joined.
You're in the Discord.
It's not showing me.
It looks like a little brownish kind of square. You're in the group. I'll tag you so it'll say something. I know you have messages in like 50 Discord servers right now. You got it?
So many Discords.
I know. I keep like leaving Discord groups because I'm like, I never go there. Why do I even have that on my on my thing?
It's overwhelming when you start getting into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I just joined a Wraith play by post, and
I made one that I never like advertised, and like I went in there and there were people in there. I was like, what? Why is someone here?
It wouldn't happen to be Sword and Cross, would it?
No.
Or Shadow with a Cross or something.
All right, so I'm gonna put I think I'm gonna do 3 in Shadow. Well,
Shadow is like your
sneakiness.
Sneakiness, manipulation.
No, deceptiveness. Yeah, I'm gonna put 2 in Shadow, 3 in Edge, and I'm gonna put 2 in Hearts, and then 1 in Iron and 1 in Wits, because I kind of feel like a kid wouldn't have gained all that much like book knowledge.
What are the stat numbers we get? I'm sorry.
3, 2, 2, 1, 1.
I'm putting 3 into Heart, 2 into Edge, 2 into Iron, 1 into Shadow, and 1 into Wits. Also, Rob, I don't know if it's just me, but when I go into the Google Doc to use the character sheets, it says view only and says that I need to ask you for access to edit it.
Oh, really?
Yes. I would like to edit my sheet, please, Rob. Please give me access.
Is that is everybody having that problem?
I don't know. I'm on the Ironsworn sheet, Amanda, so I'm assuming that's the one I'm meant to be on.
I mean, it's not actually like, I have never had it preparing a download this long before, so I have no idea.
Mine says view only also.
Yeah, view only. Bad, Rob. No biscuit.
How do I change that? Anybody know how to use?
Yes, go to share. When you click on share, there should be down at the bottom, there should be a way to like change permissions or something.
Okay, wait a second. I see here.
Yeah, there should be the share thing.
And you can change it to anybody can edit.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, here I will change that. Right, I had it on just view. I see. I'm changing it now.
Naughty Rob to get our hopes all up and did not let us edit.
Let me know if that worked. Can you edit yours now, Amanda?
I'm reopening and then finding out.
There's a space for a picture.
Yes.
Yep. Shout out to my friend Nick from Germany who made these for our other game, and I just stole them.
Wow.
I didn't even ask. I just took them.
I has editing. Yay, editing.
Gretch, have you been able to get into the drive?
I am. I'm trying to look up where each of these things, like Edge, Heart, Iron, Shadow, and Wits, like what that actually means, and I'm not finding it.
Okay.
So
I'll
on page 33.
Page 33. Thank you.
Of the book. Yeah.
Of the main core
rule book.
Yes.
Yeah. And really quick note here, as you guys are sort of filling this in, I'll make mention of this. There is the core book, and then there's the Delve supplement. The Delve is awesome. I think it's really a great addition to the game, but it adds another layer of complication.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to add it until we are ready to, until we played a little while. Because I don't want to add a level of complication. But essentially, a delve can be anything. Like it can be like a dungeon delve. It can be a forest delve. It can be exploring a city. You can put in a delve, but it's essentially a way to break down a specific location in a more interesting way than the core rules allow for. But we did an underground city with the core rules, and it turned out great. So we don't have to do it. If we're like, this is enough for us, then we can be fine with that. But I will throw it out there that it's pretty cool. It does add another level of complexity, but it's interesting as well. So I put the book in there for those of you who are like really just insane and want to read both of the books like I did. You can do that. But other than that, after we get the stats drawn, then all you basically have to do next is just pick 3 assets. You're welcome to ask me questions. A lot of the descriptors there are probably not going to make a ton of sense, but I will tell you this. This game is very much designed to play to our strengths. So whatever we choose, the game will follow the path that allows us to use our abilities best, because we will do things which our characters would do. That's the direction we'll end up going. So there's, in my experience, without in any way controlling a narrative in any particular direction or knowing what any of the assets actually meant before I started playing, I use my assets all the time in the other game. They come up all the time. And it's the same with everybody else. Everybody's always using their stuff. So don't be so afraid of like, oh, I got to figure out. There's no min-maxing in this, I guess is what I'm saying. There's no like, oh, I got to find the right one to get the best benefit for my character. That doesn't exist. Really, flavor is the most important thing. And for the most part, a lot of the times you can even like figure it out just by the very name of the asset. So I guess what I'm saying is don't over stress about it. Don't overthink about it. If you are having a struggle and you feel like, I don't know if I should take this or that, is this like useless or whatever, you can ask me and I'll be able to kind of explain it. I'll kind of explain it to you. So that way that, you get a really good sense of what it is and you can make a sort of an accurate determination of how you want to make your choices. Other than that, when we start next time, or actually probably between now and when we play next time, we want to do 2 things. We're going to create a background vow. So the background vow will be a vow with somebody in our own personal stories or a place in our own personal stories. And it should be a pretty hard thing to achieve. So you want it to be at, extreme or epic. It's unlikely you'll ever achieve it. It's just for you to add something to your character's story, like something that tugs at them, something that drives them, I guess you might say. And then we're also going to want to create bonds with each other. The bonds with each other are the reason why we would travel together. We don't need to all bond with all of each other, but we want to all be bonded as a group. Meaning, like I could bond with Gretchen's character and only Gretchen's character if she's bonded with Amanda's character, who's bonded with Ben's character. Then we're all connected, even though we're only all connected to one person. But we want to make sure that all of us are bonded, so that way, when we start the game, and we come up with our inciting incident, which will be the reason why we start adventuring, it makes sense. We need to like have a reason that isn't like we meet in a tavern and play out a role-playing scene. Like we are already going to start knowing each other. We'll set a scene and then we will like go from there, and an adventure will begin, and then we'll start rolling dice and using oracles and describing what we're doing. Our relationships will change and will grow as characters as we interact, but we want to have at least a tenuous connection to each other. And I'll give an example. My other character in the other Ironsworn game, he's a wizard's apprentice, as I mentioned, and he has 3 assets. 2 of the assets are rituals, so they're basically magic spells. The third one, however, is one called Long Arm, and it's being able to use a staff, kind of be like a fight with a staff. I have the background vow with my master who has this special staff. I have his staff now, like, so I kind of had the story. Well, I built it into my background story that I learned how to use the staff from this member of this tribe, the herbalist character that I mentioned. He, like, I had it as in my story, like, well, I met him because I was trying to get rare herbs to like practice my magics and stuff with. And I noted that he knew how to use the staff. So he taught me while I was going and trading herbs, buying herbs from him. He taught me how to use the staff. His character also has the long arm asset. So we ended up having a similar asset. It made sense that he trained me. And that's the bond that we have. And so we start off somewhat friendly. You know, we're friendly, like, and it's a nice leading off point. And then I'm not bonded to anybody else in the group, but he's bonded to other people, so we're all connected. In fact, I have a really great conflict with another character in the group. That's a lot of fun. We both enjoy it. We're both okay with it, and it's she's somebody that sees the dead and sees things, and so she noticed that I had this ambition to like take this artifact for myself and use its power, because, you know, flawed characters. And she noticed it and confronted me, and we had an awesome role. And there's this great tension that's been building, but we just need to have at least one bond with each other, and we need to all be bonded. So I would say that between this session and 4 weeks from now, when we actually play session 1, we're going to want to come up with those bonds, figure out how we're bonded. And, you know, that'll be a lot easier once we kind of come up with what our characters are and get a better sense of who they are. I mean, like, I think Amanda has a really good idea of who her character is, but I don't know that the rest of us have it fleshed out to that level. Amanda went into character, so but anything else we want to discuss? Or, I mean, we can kind of call it quits here. Otherwise, I mean, I think we're in pretty good shape. So Ben, are you going to commit to bringing our musical selections next time?
Yeah, I can. I can go back and give us a playlist.
All right.
That'd be awesome. You know,
Cool.
In fact, what I can do is I can do screen sharing, and I can include you in your screen sharing. Maybe you could just share the music from your end through Zoom, and I'll share for the first couple sessions. I'll want to be able to put the rules up on the screen for us to take a look at, so we know how it works, and I can explain that, especially in the first session, because you'll see it's complicated at first, but it becomes intuitive. So all right, well,
honestly,
guys,
the handouts that came with the download package made things so much easier than the book itself. Really, they did.
You almost don't even need the book.
You're better off without the book.
Well, now that I know how to play the game, the book is super useful. But before I knew how to play the game, yeah, I agree. There's one. So I will tell you, in the Ironsworn books and resources, there is what's called a play kit. This one will give you It has a character sheet in it, but it gives you a lot of descriptions on. It tells you all the moves, and it tells you how to basically play the game. So I would suggest, if you want to read anything to prepare, you can read through that. And if you even have a passing understanding of it at all, then that's good enough. But you don't even need that. I literally can. I will guide you. It's not hard.
I will guide you.
I will guide you. My child will guide you. You'll follow him into the wilderness. All right, guys. Well, I'm excited. I think we came up with a really interesting world. I can't wait to see what it ends up being. And
RPGs and Baby Makes 3 is a production of Gretchen and Rob sitting on their couch. Email the show at rpgsandbabymakes3@gmail.com. You can find more episodes on Podbean, Spotify, and iTunes, as well as on our free Patreon page at patreon.com/RPGs and Baby Makes 3.